Scroll disclaimer. This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by various themes from celebrity paranormal encounters. While it draws loosely from real-life ghost stories and rumors from the entertainment world, the names, incidents, and events portrayed are entirely made up for narrative purposes. Any similarity to actual people, living or deceased, is purely coincidental. This work does not aim to defame, misrepresent, or exploit any real celebrity or public figure. It is intended solely for entertainment and storytelling. Listener discretion is advised, especially for those sensitive to paranormal and psychological horror themes. It all began with a mysterious invitation that arrived in elegant black envelopes sealed with red wax. The return address was unlisted, but each envelope carried a single gold-embossed name on the front, only the first name, no titles, no fanfare. The recipients were some of the most recognizable faces in the world. Movie stars, musicians, models, comedians, celebrities who were no strangers to the spotlight, but who now found themselves summoned to a private estate hidden deep in the Hollywood Hills. The host was Elijah Graves, a late-night talk show legend who had vanished from television years ago under strange and sudden circumstances. The invitation read, "One night, one truth. Share what the world can't know. Let the dead speak." E.g., most of them assumed it was some elaborate publicity stunt, maybe a new docuseries in the making. But curiosity, and a quiet, shared obsession with the supernatural, pulled them in. The estate, known simply as the Manor, was cloaked in dense trees and guarded by silence. No cameras. No assistants. No press. When the celebrities arrived, one by one, they were greeted by a staff of silent attendants dressed in black, who led them to a large circular room lit only by candelabras. Velvet chairs formed a ring around a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. The scent of dust and old books lingered in the air. Elijah Graves finally appeared, thinner and older than they remembered, but his voice still carried that magnetic tone that once made America listen. He welcomed them with a strange smile and began with a simple statement: "You've all seen things. Felt things. Things the public would never believe. Tonight, we face them. Together." The room shifted. Faces that once graced red carpets now turned pale with unease. No one spoke at first. But slowly, the silence was broken by soft laughter, nervous, unsure. It was Lana Ray, the pop superstar known for her fearless persona. "This is either going to be the creepiest night of our lives," she said, "or the weirdest therapy session ever." Elijah nodded, pleased. "Let's start with you, Lana. Tell us about Berlin." The atmosphere changed in an instant. Lana's smile faded. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass. "You know about Berlin?" she asked. Elijah only looked at her, unblinking. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. "I've never told this to anyone outside my manager and my therapist," she began. "But fine. You want ghost stories? I'll give you one." The room quieted, all ears on her. The fire pit remained dark, but the temperature seemed to drop. Some shifted in their seats, already regretting being there. Still, they were hooked. This wasn't a casual ghost-sharing session like what gets filmed for some cable reality show. It felt heavier, stranger. Like something was listening, not just them. Lana's story began, and as she spoke, the others leaned in, unable to look away. She described a five-star hotel, a song that kept playing on its own, whispers through walls, and a figure that stood at the foot of her bed each night for a week. What shook everyone wasn't just her story, it was the emotion in her voice, the detail in her memory. This wasn't performance. This was confession. When she finished, the silence was thick. Then came the next story. One by one, they began to open up. What started as a planned evening of storytelling became a spiritual unraveling. The more they shared, the more haunted the room felt. Elijah never told them why he brought them there, not fully, but each of them began to sense there was more to this meeting than nostalgia or curiosity. As the stories piled up, a disturbing pattern emerged. Each one involved a warning, an object, or a figure that lingered beyond the veil of reason. Something that wanted to be remembered. And something that, perhaps, had followed them here. None of them noticed when the fire pit suddenly lit itself. None of them saw the shadows moving along the walls. And none of them questioned Elijah's final words before they broke for the night. "They know you're here now." Lana Ray's voice trembled slightly as she began her story. The pop icon, known globally for her confidence and bold stage presence, suddenly looked vulnerable, like someone recalling a nightmare they never quite woke up from. She leaned forward, her long red nails tapping against her wine glass rhythmically, her eyes not meeting anyone else's. The room was quiet. Too quiet. "This happened in Berlin," she began, her voice low. 2019, I was on the European leg of my Neon Saints tour. Sold-out shows, media frenzy, fans waiting outside hotels. You know the usual. But this hotel. I'd never stayed anywhere like it. She described the building, a restored 19th century hotel located on the outskirts of Berlin. It was famous for its Gothic architecture, high ceilings, and ornate chandeliers. It had once been a private mansion, later converted into a military hospital during World War II, and eventually turned into a luxury boutique hotel. "The energy was strange from the moment I arrived," she said. "It felt cold, not physically, just emotionally dead. The halls were too quiet, the staff avoided eye contact, and every door creaked like it was crying." At first, Lana chalked it up to jet lag and stress. But things started happening immediately. On her first night, she was awakened at exactly 3:13 a.m. by music. A scratchy version of her own song, "Ghost in Glass," was playing from somewhere in the suite. But her speakers were off. She checked every device. Nothing was playing. Her phone was locked. She called hotel security, but when they arrived, the music had stopped. The second night was worse. She woke again, same time, this time to whispering. "It sounded like someone was standing at the foot of my bed, mumbling," she said. "I couldn't make out the words, but I swear it was my name." When she turned on the lights, no one was there. But the window was open, even though she remembered closing it. Lana's eyes glassed over a bit as she recounted the third night. "I don't know how to explain this without sounding insane," she said. "But something was in that room with me. I saw it." She described waking up and being completely paralyzed, her body frozen, eyes wide open. Standing in the corner was a tall, shadowy figure. No face. No voice. Just watching. "It didn't move, but I could feel its hate," she said. "It was like it was feeding off my fear." After the third night, Lana insisted on moving to a different hotel. Her team argued it was last minute and she had press obligations, but she didn't care. "I felt like I was going to lose my mind if I stayed one more second in that place," she said. When she packed her things, she found a small object tucked under her pillow, a rusted key on a chain with a tag that read Zimmer 313. But her room was 507. Lana brought the key with her. She showed it to the group, still on a chain, still rusted, the tag faded. "I tried to throw it away once," she said. "But it showed up again in my bag. I've stopped trying." Some of the others gasped quietly. The room had turned ice cold. Elijah leaned forward, studying the key carefully but not touching it. "Do you still hear it?" he asked softly. Lana's response was almost a whisper. "Sometimes, when I stay in hotels. The song plays. Not every time, just when it's really quiet. Like something is reminding me it's still there." The silence that followed was suffocating. Everyone was trying to process what they'd just heard, but before anyone could speak, the fire in the center pit flickered violently. The flames rose for a second, then settled. The comedian, Troy Mason, broke the silence. "Jesus, Lana. That's messed up. Are you sure you weren't just sleep-deprived or dreaming?" Lana gave him a look that could cut glass. "I've been on tour for 12 years. I've been sleep-deprived, drunk, exhausted, and high. But I've never hallucinated the same thing for 3 nights in a row. And definitely not things that leave physical objects behind." Another voice chimed in, this time from the model seated across from her. "Did you ever go back? Try to find out the history of the place?" Lana shook her head. "I tried. But the hotel mysteriously closed down a year later. No explanation. No forwarding address. Even the website disappeared." Elijah sat back, eyes fixed on the key. "Sometimes they choose us. Sometimes we open a door we don't realize exists. And sometimes, that door never really closes. Everyone stared at the object in Lana's hand like it might move on its own. And for a moment, some of them believed it could. The flickering fire cast long shadows across the candlelit room as the group fell into uneasy silence. Lana's story had set a tone none of them expected. But Elijah, always the quiet conductor of these strange revelations, turned toward the tall, rugged man sitting to his right. "Vin," he said softly, "you filmed at that studio in New Orleans, didn't you?" Vin Carter, a well-known action star and Oscar nominee, shifted in his chair. He rarely did interviews and almost never spoke about his private life. His fans saw him as indestructible, the guy who always won the final fight. But here, in this strange circle, something in his demeanor cracked. "I never told anyone this," Vin said slowly, rubbing his hands together. "Not my agent, not the press, not even my wife." He took a deep breath and began. It was 2016. I had just signed on to that indie psychological thriller, Echoes of Dust. The director wanted to shoot everything on location in Louisiana to give it that gritty, authentic feel. The main setting was an abandoned film studio just outside New Orleans. It used to be owned by a horror production company in the 70s. They shut down after one of their lead actresses died in a freak accident, fell from a lighting rig. Or at least, that's what the rumors said. From the first day of shooting, Vin said he felt watched. Not in the usual sense. This wasn't paparazzi or fans peeking through fences. This was different, he said. Like the air itself was aware of me. The mirror room was the centerpiece of the film, an ornate, dusty chamber with tall antique mirrors from floor to ceiling. That set wasn't a replica. It was part of the original studio, untouched since the 70s. Most of the crew joked about how creepy it was, but Vin said the energy there wasn't something to laugh about. On the third day of filming, something happened, he said. We were shooting a scene where I had to walk through the mirror room alone, no dialogue. Just dramatic lighting and camera pans. Simple. But when I walked past the last mirror, I saw something behind me. Vin paused. It was a man. Dressed in old clothes, like from the 1940s, black vest, tie, slicked back hair. He stood still, arms by his sides, watching me. He wasn't anyone from the crew. I turned around. No one was there. He brushed it off at first, thinking it was a reflection of someone outside the frame. But when he asked the director to roll playback, the crew went silent. He's not on camera, Vin said. You can see my face reacting, turning, but nothing is there. Just empty mirror behind me. After that day, things escalated. Lights flickered on set. Sound equipment picked up voices whispering in the background. Cold spots formed in the mirror room, and props would move overnight. One night, Vin stayed late to review footage alone. As he walked past the mirror room on the way to his trailer, he noticed something written in the dust on one of the mirrors. 3 words, "We see you." He wiped it clean with his jacket. The next morning, the same message appeared again. And then again. And again. I stopped wiping it after the 4th time, he said. But the final incident was the one that broke him. Vin had a dream, or what he thought was a dream. He was standing in the mirror room again, only this time, the mirrors didn't reflect him. They reflected the man. The same one in the old vest. He stood where Vin should have been, and he mouthed words Vin couldn't hear. When Vin woke up, he was on the floor of his trailer, fully dressed, with glass cuts on his palms. The mirrors had shattered, he said, his voice low. But no one heard anything. The studio security footage was blank for 4 hours that night. And the strangest part? Not a single mirror was broken when I returned to set. He left the production a week later, claiming creative differences. The movie was finished without him using body doubles and rewritten scenes. To this day, Vin said he refuses to work near reflective surfaces on set. His contracts now include a clause, no scenes involving antique mirrors. As Vin ended his story, the group sat still, stunned. The crackling fire in the middle seemed distant, like background noise. No one knew what to say. Elijah finally broke the silence with a chilling thought. Mirrors are gates. Some only open from the other side. A low rumble of unease settled over the room. The stories were no longer just creepy recollections, they were beginning to feel interconnected. Almost like the celebrities had all been chosen for a reason, their experiences part of something deeper. Elijah said nothing, only nodding toward the tall, elegant woman with striking features sitting beside Vin. Sierra Blair, a world-renowned supermodel and fashion icon, rarely spoke in public. Her interviews were carefully curated, her persona always polished. But now, seated in the firelit circle among fellow celebrities, something about her seemed stripped bare. "I didn't believe in curses," Sierra said softly. "Not until the dress." The room fell into silence again. Sierra leaned forward, her long arms resting on her knees. It was Paris Fashion Week 2020, right before the world shut down. I had just been chosen to wear the finale piece for Maison de Claret's tribute collection, an emerald green gown from the 1930s, preserved for decades. They called it La Robe de Minuit, the midnight dress. The gown was exquisite, hand-sewn silk, beating like stars scattered across a forest of velvet. It was the first time it had ever been worn publicly since its original debut, and it was rumored to be the last dress ever designed by Juliette Claret before she was found dead in her atelier, her body discovered entangled in bolts of fabric. Suicide, they said. But rumors had long whispered darker theories. "The first moment I tried it on," Sierra continued, "I felt it. Like the air had shifted around me. The room got cold. My chest got tight. I brushed it off as nerves. I mean, I was wearing a priceless antique on the biggest runway of the year." But that night, strange things began to happen. The makeup artist assigned to her had a seizure backstage, completely out of nowhere. A light rig collapsed just seconds after Sierra walked beneath it. Her phone refused to hold a charge, always dying at exactly midnight. "I know these sound like coincidences," she admitted. "But the moment the dress touched me, it felt like something attached itself." The runway show itself was a blur. Sierra walked confidently, but as she reached the end of the catwalk, she said she felt something tug the hem of her dress. When she looked down, no one was there. But in the photos released afterward, the final frame showed a blur behind her, a woman's silhouette, faint and out of focus, reaching from the shadows behind the stage curtain. "No one else saw it," Sierra said. "Not in person. Only in the image." But the silhouette matched Juliette Claret's only known portrait. Over the next week, Sierra's health declined. She experienced dizzy spells, migraines, sleep paralysis. But the worst part? Every night she dreamt of the same woman, a tall, Eventually, she locked it in a custom-built glass case in a storage unit, monitored 24/7 by cameras. But even then, strange events didn't stop entirely. She showed the group a photo from her phone. The dress inside the case. But behind the glass, in the reflection, there stood the silhouette again. Closer this time. "Do you think it's the designer?" one of the others whispered. "I don't know," Sierra said. "But whatever it is, it doesn't want to be forgotten. And it's angry." Elijah looked at her carefully. "Some objects hold more than just memories," he said. "They carry ownership. Identity. Rage." The others said nothing. But their eyes started toward their own belongings, wondering what might be clinging to them without their knowledge. Troy Mason had been quiet for most of the evening. Seated near the edge of the firelight, the comedian known for his loud laugh and wild improv seemed unusually restrained. He was America's funny guy, the one who always had a punchline, even in the darkest moments. But tonight, as Sierra's story ended and the group turned to him, the grin he usually wore vanished. He took a long sip from his glass, cleared his throat, and leaned forward. "You ever hear something that doesn't make a sound?" he asked. "Something that creeps into your thoughts, whispers in your brain, and you don't know if it's yours or something else speaking through you?" No one answered. "Yeah," Troy said, nodding to himself. "That's what I thought." He looked up at the flames, the light dancing across his face. "I had my first breakdown in 2017. Most people think it was because of the pressure, shows, tours, the divorce. They think I went off the rails for the usual reasons. Drugs, ego, burnout. But they don't know what really happened." The others sat still, sensing they were about to hear something darker than anything before. "I was living in that big house in the Hollywood Hills," Troy began. "The one with the infinity pool and glass walls. You've probably seen it in Architectural Digest. At night, It looked amazing, but it was always too quiet. Too still. Especially after midnight. He first noticed it after he started writing new material for a Netflix special. At night, he'd hear soft voices, not outside, not in the house, but inside his head. It wasn't like thinking. It was like something was being fed into his thoughts. They'd say my name, at first, Troy said. Just barely. Whispering it over and over. And then, they started laughing. He paused, voice tightening. But it wasn't my laugh. It was a distorted version of it, like someone mocking me. Twisting it. At first, he thought he was losing it. He hired spiritual healers, sound therapists, even a shaman. Nothing helped. The whispers got louder. It wasn't constant, he explained. But they'd always come when I was alone. In the shower. In bed. In the green room before going on stage. Then came the dreams. In them, Troy would be standing on stage, mic in hand, spotlight on him, but the audience was made of shadows. No faces. Just figures. And every time he spoke, the microphone would melt, the lights would flicker, and a voice from the audience would yell, "Not your words. Not your jokes." It got to the point where I didn't know if what I was saying on stage was mine anymore, Troy confessed. I'd write stuff down and not remember writing it. I'd do a set, kill it, and not recall a single word. My jokes started getting darker. Meaner. Like something else had taken over my style. One night, he found himself in front of his bathroom mirror, muttering one of his punchlines over and over again. He didn't remember getting up. He didn't remember walking there. But there he was, laughing in a voice that didn't sound like his own. That was when he called his manager and canceled the tour. He disappeared from the public eye for almost a year. The press called it self-care and mental rest, but the truth was more terrifying. He was being haunted, not by ghosts he could see, but by something far more intimate, possession of the mind. I started hearing the voice during the day, he said. It told me I didn't deserve laughter. That I was a fraud. That I'd stolen other people's energy to build my fame. It told me I was next. At his lowest, Troy nearly ended his own life. He stood on the edge of his balcony at 3:33 a.m., the voice urging him to jump. And then, just as I was about to step off, he said, eyes watery, I saw my reflection in the glass, and it smiled at me. But I wasn't smiling. Troy got help, eventually. Intensive therapy. Medication. Silence. He moved out of the hills, destroyed every recording of the special he'd been working on, and swore off live performances for years. But the voice? It never fully went away. Sometimes I hear it when I'm falling asleep, he whispered. Laughing. Waiting. The fire in the center crackled louder, sparks popping as if reacting to his confession. Elijah's voice broke the silence. Some spirits don't want to scare us. They want to be us. Troy didn't respond. He simply stared into the fire, the light flickering in his eyes. The firelight flickered violently for a moment, casting eerie shapes on the walls behind them. Everyone was now visibly tense. No one was smiling. No one was laughing, not even Troy. The shadows seemed to lean in closer with every story, as if listening, as if hungry. Elijah turned toward a tall man sitting silently in the darkest corner of the circle. His presence had been barely noticeable until now, as if the gloom itself had kept him hidden. Dressed in a plain black turtleneck and gray slacks, with unkempt hair and tired eyes, the man slowly lifted his gaze. Logan, Elijah said gently. You filmed the hollow sound, didn't you? Logan Voss, the critically acclaimed director known for his psychological horror films, nodded once. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. That film almost ended my life, he said. And it definitely ended someone else's. A chill moved through the room like a wave. It started like any other production, Logan began. I'd been developing the story for years. A slow-burn horror about a grieving father who believes his dead daughter is speaking through audio recordings. It was supposed to be subtle, emotional. But the deeper I went, the more unstable I became. He looked around at the others. It wasn't just stress. It was like the project had a mind of its own. Logan explained how everything began to shift after the first week of filming. Crew members began quitting, citing strange dreams, feeling followed, hearing crying when no one was on set. But the worst part was the sound booth. We converted this old church into a recording space for Foley and voiceovers, he said. It had amazing acoustics, but from day one, everyone hated being in there. Even I couldn't stay inside longer than 5 minutes without getting a migraine. He described one session in particular where the actor recording the daughter's ghostly voice went into a trance during a take. She kept repeating a phrase that wasn't in the script, he said. Something about a door. The door is open now. Over and over. We shut the session down. She didn't remember saying it. As filming progressed, Logan began to lose time. Hours would vanish from his memory. He would arrive on set and find scenes rewritten in his handwriting, but with content he didn't recognize. It was darker. Harsher. The grieving father's character started becoming violent, obsessive. And I realized I was mirroring him. He laughed once, but it was bitter and humorless. I started having dreams of a little girl standing at the end of my bed. She never moved, never spoke. Just stared. Every night, closer. Until one night, she whispered, "You're not the one telling this story." Things escalated quickly. The lead actor had a breakdown during a pivotal scene, screaming that someone was trying to crawl inside his skin. A lighting tech was hospitalized after a fall caused by faulty rigging, only there had been no rigging where he fell. And then came the final day of shooting. We were wrapping the most emotional scene in the movie, Logan said. The father says goodbye to his daughter's spirit. But the moment the actor spoke the final line, all the cameras, every single one, cut out. Lights blew. And in the silence, we all heard it. He looked up, eyes wide. A voice. On every live mic. A child's voice. Laughing. He paused to let it sink in. After that, I tried to scrap the project, he said. But the producers refused. They loved the footage. They said it was too real to waste. I begged them not to release it. But they did. And the hollow sound became a cult hit. But Logan wasn't proud. He felt hollow, like something had been taken from him. His health deteriorated. He lost time, grew paranoid. Eventually, he locked himself in a cabin in the Rockies for 6 months, away from all media, all screens, all sound. I still don't know if I directed that film, he whispered. Or if something else did through me. Elijah's eyes narrowed. Some stories don't want to be told, he said. They want to be experienced. And they'll use anyone to get out. Logan leaned back, wiping a trembling hand across his mouth. Sometimes I hear her voice in static. On the radio. On TV. Even in white noise. Like she's still trying to finish the story. The others sat frozen. It no longer felt like they were just sharing ghost stories. It felt like they were confessing to something they had brought back. The fire had grown dimmer as though reacting to the weight of Logan's story. The once glamorous room now felt heavy with unseen presence. The celebrities exchanged looks not of amusement or even fear, but of silent acknowledgement. Each had come thinking they'd share a ghost story. None had expected to feel like they'd summoned something real. Something alive. Elijah stood quietly, lifting a small iron poker to stoke the fire. Sparks flew upward like tiny spirits escaping. "You've all been marked," he said softly, "in ways the world can't understand. That's why I brought you here. Not for entertainment, but protection." The group shifted uneasily. Troy frowned. Protection? From what? Elijah looked up. From what follows. From what hears its name spoken aloud. A loud knock echoed through the manor. Everyone froze. It wasn't the sound of a door, not the hollow slap of wood. It was a deep, metallic clang, like something striking iron from within the walls. Then silence. "No one else is supposed to be here," Vin muttered. Elijah didn't speak. Instead, he walked to the center of the circle and placed an object on the floor. A box. Wooden, small, old. With runes carved into its edges. He opened it, revealing several worn paper slips, each covered in names, symbols, fragments of dates. He passed them out, one by one. "These were collected by those before you," he said. Artists. Writers. Performers. Creators who were touched, haunted by something after fame. They believed sharing the story could pass the curse forward, relieve the burden. But they were wrong. Sierra stared at the paper in her hands. "What is this?" "Contracts," Elijah whispered. Spiritual ones. Signed by fear, sealed by retelling. The more you remember the spirit, the more it remembers you. Another bang, closer this time. Lana jumped, dropping her paper. Is this some kind of ritual? What the hell is going on? Vin stood up, fists clenched. If this is a sick game, I'm done. But before anyone could react, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Candles extinguished themselves with sharp hiss sounds, one after another, plunging the room into near darkness. The fire flickered, struggled, then surged upward, burning blue. Then came the voice. It didn't come from any one direction. It surrounded them. Above, below, inside. A girl's voice, whispering in a language none of them recognized. It was soft, melodic, but wrong. Words twisted in impossible ways. Logan clutched his ears, trembling. It's her, he gasped. It's the girl from my film. The mirrors lining the back wall of the parlor began to fog. One by one, faces appeared in the glass, not reflections, but watchers. Pale, emotionless, ancient. Dozens. Then hundreds. All staring into the circle. Sierra let out a soft cry, backing away. They've been here the whole time. The group surged to their feet. Panic set in. Troy bolted for the hallway, but the door slammed shut on its own. The room was now sealed. Elijah didn't move. There is no escape, he said. You spoke their names. You called them back. They don't want stories. They want presence. A voice. A vessel. The fire roared once more, and something stepped through the flame. A figure, humanoid but grotesque. Flickering in and out of visibility, like it couldn't fully exist in this world. Its body shimmered like heat on asphalt, its eyes hollow and smoking. It wore the cursed dress. Held the rusted hotel key. Reflected Logan's melting film reel in its torso. It was all their stories in one. Lana screamed. Vin shouted back. Stay back. But there was nowhere to go. The creature spoke. You made us real. Sierra collapsed. Troy muttered jokes under his breath, the same ones from his breakdown, over and over. Logan wept silently. The air pulsed with energy, thick and electric. Elijah finally stepped forward, facing the thing. You were never supposed to come through, he whispered. The creature leaned close to him. Then you never should have invited them. And with that, the fire exploded outward, and everything went black. When the light returned, only Elijah stood in the room. The chairs were empty. No papers. No names. No celebrities. Gone. The night had dissolved into silence. The fire pit lay cold and blackened. The velvet chairs, once filled with some of the world's most recognizable faces, now sat empty in a perfect circle, like props in a stage play that had ended without applause. The candles were nothing more than burnt wicks. The ornate mirror behind the fireplace, once reflecting the room in soft flickers of candlelight, now showed nothing at all. Not even Elijah's reflection. He stood alone. His hands trembled slightly as he stepped toward the center of the circle. For a moment, he looked aged. Not just older, but exhausted in a way that transcended physical time. Like a man who had opened a door no one else dared approach and watched as everything behind it came rushing through. He stared into the mirror and whispered, "Was this the price?" And then, the whispering began again. Soft. All around him. Layered voices, hundreds, thousands. They came not from any one place, but from within. The voices of the lost. The famous. The forgotten. Each one telling their story at once. Screaming. Begging. Laughing. Some were familiar. Lana. Vin. Troy. Sierra. Logan. Their voices now part of something larger, woven into a chorus of the damned. Elijah collapsed to his knees. He reached into the fire pit, brushing aside the ash until his fingers touched something solid, the small wooden box he had opened earlier. Burned along the edges now. But the slips of paper inside had changed. No longer bearing just names and symbols. Now they were messages. He pulled one out. In fresh, black ink that hadn't been there before, was a single phrase. Tell them. Elijah sat motionless. His heart thundered in his chest, but the air around him was still. The voices faded. And then, One final apparition took shape in the mirror. It wasn't monstrous or disfigured like before. It was simple, human. A girl no older than 10, dressed in 1930s funeral clothes. Pale face, hollow eyes. The same girl from Logan's story. The same one from the cursed dress. The same one who had stood at the edge of Troy's bed, whispered in Sierra's dreams, and echoed through Lana's song. She stared at Elijah. And in a voice as clear as glass cracking, she spoke directly to him, not with malice, but warning. They chase the light, but forget what watches from the dark. Fame doesn't protect. It invites. Every word spoken about us is another thread woven into our world. And now, we're listening. The girl smiled, not cruelly, but mournfully, and vanished. Elijah remained frozen. Outside the manor, dawn was breaking, but the light didn't seem to reach the windows. The estate was once again silent, forgotten by time. Yet, in a locked drawer deep within Elijah's private study, sat a collection of tapes, recordings of every word spoken that night. He knew what he had to do. He sent them anonymously to a podcast known for airing paranormal encounters. Uploaded them to underground forums. Slipped transcripts into the hands of online ghost story narrators. He masked the origins, distorted the voices, changed the names, hoping it would delay the consequences. But deep down, he understood the truth. He wasn't stopping the curse. He was spreading it. Because every time the story was told, every time someone listened, every time someone said, "I don't believe in ghosts," but they invited the watchers in. 90.